during the week of June 16, there were 3 separate and distinct instances which presented themselves to our administrative offices that in some form or fashion involved a company or a person having cut vegetative materials, trimmed trees, cut trees, or whatever, and transported the debris from the location where they were cleared into St. Martin Parish, into another tract of land, depositing them there, and 2 of those 3 instances burning them. And the second issue that's implicated by these activities is potential violation of our zoning ordinance, because it's a commercial activity any way you slice it, because he's dumping the debris on those sites which originate from another site. It's a commercial activity, and the location of the dumping is not only an activity in itself, but it is a commercial activity. And I think all 3 of the instances were taking place in R2 mixed residential areas in violation of our zoning ordinance. So there's a lot of exceptions to the prohibition, and it's still designed to create a level playing field. I do know I have spoken to one tree service who was fully supportive of it, because this individual that I spoke to actually has a site that he has licensed to accommodate the receipt of the vegetative materials he cut, and his investment was $60,000 to bring that property up to speed. So again, I think it's a good ordinance. 2 is whether he wants to admit it or not, he's using that property as part of his business endeavors, period. That property is zoned R2 mixed residential. It's not zoned to accommodate the activity he's conducting. He's been told that. Jump Road is zoned R2 mixed residential, which does not allow business or debris dumping of any kind without going through the rezoning process. Close quotes. December 11th, 2020. Mr. Hebert, our Director of Administration, and Ronald Solari, our Compliance Officer for our Planning and Zoning Department, visited this site and spoke to Mr. Broussard. And on that day, Mr. Broussard admitted that there was tree stumps and the like and other vegetative material being hauled to the site in connection with this tree service. A commercial activity, period. We had a meeting in my office where I reviewed with that department all of our outstanding nuisances, and when it came to this particular file, I requested Mr. Solari and Mr. Hebert, look guys, if Mr. Broussard is continuing to operate, I want a cease and desist letter submitted to him. The fact remains that there's a commercial activity taking place on this property. There's the hauling of trees and other debris, dumping at that site, which calls into question, in my view, potential DEQ and in Louisiana Department of Agriculture regulations. And I might also add that on this date, we confirmed that additional businesses were being allowed to bring vegetative material to that site. Don't know what you call that, but I call that further proof this is a commercial activity by more than one person.
Well, the person beside myself that was on the property as a witness was the judge of this parish. I believe you all would hear him if he told you or checked with me to see if I was lying. There was no money exchange. There's no business being done on this property. My interpretation. That's my interpretation. I know because I'm the one there doing it. Understand? Cedars is my interpretation. There's no money exchange.
And we have reached out to Mr. Broussard and asked, hey, come sit with us. If you want an exception, there's a process to follow. You just can't ignore that process. You can request a variance or a zoning exception. It'll go through a process. Planning and zoning will have a hearing. And whatever that decision might be, or recommendation for planning and zoning, guess who it comes to? You. That process has never been followed. Then, on June 17th is when I contacted an attorney who handles these nuisance matters for us, Mr. Durio, and requested that he contact Mr. Broussard by letter requesting that he cease and desist from any activity on those premises until such time as we could resolve these issues, period. And more importantly, we still have our zoning ordinance issue that has to be addressed. I was informed in that conversation that there's only 2 services in St. Martin Parish that are following the rules. One of those companies I talked to several weeks ago, who's all for this ordinance, by the way. You know why? Because it puts everybody on the level playing field. This man in the tree service business told me it cost him $60,000 to bring his property up to standards so that he could dump on sites to burn. Mr. I don't want to use the individual's name, but the person from DEQ did ask me if the parish would work with haulers if they needed some sort of relief in terms of zoning regulations, because he conceded, hey, we're not going to give a permit if it's not zoned for it. My response was, of course we will. But you got to go through a process. If you poison the process, you have no rule. If you poison the process, you play politics. That's not what we're doing. Period. And it's very frustrating. You know that, how hard it is and frustrating nuisance issues are to begin with. It seeks to put everybody who does business on a level playing ground, and it doesn't involve just this gentleman. It involves anyone who transports vegetated materials and dumps them in our property.
Stay there. There was no burning in regards to what was coming on my property. Besides me clearing the woods in the back, I didn't bring debris there and burn it. Right, Mr. Bear? You know,
I know you didn't.
as far as he knows, and as far as anybody knows, so there was no burning. So talking even to DEQ, there was no permit from DEQ in regards to burning. I asked him about it, said, but I'm not burning it. So there was no burning on the property. And
You're still violating the zoning ordinance.
yeah,
You're
I
claiming
can't
it.
talk about the zoning
No,
ordinance
you're
myself.
violating the
I
zoning
know.
ordinance, there's no doubt about it.
I
So
can't.
you're taking your commercial business and you're dumping in a residential area. You're violating the zoning ordinance, and you have been for years, and you know it, or years now. So if you go to planning and zoning, maybe they can give you a waiver to do that, since you're not gonna burn, and you're just gonna store it and fill it up in beautification of the property and improve it. But you gotta go through the process. You can't just do
I
it.
wish I could respond to that. My attorney told me not to, so I wish I could talk to her. I guess y'all will.